Hello and welcome to Key Radio Live. We're back.
Welcome back, everyone.
Season 4, baby. We made it.
It's been, 6 months since the last official season, because book clubs are not seasons. They're a different type of format.
Yeah, we ended in, I think April. So,
yeah,
God, that feels so long ago.
Right?
No kidding. For people who have been keeping up with the book club, it hasn't been too long.
The shortest break we've had.
Thanks to the new timetable that we've got going here, where we're on a night that works better for a lot of people.
Yeah.
If you were waiting since April, probably the longest break we've taken, if you are not counting book clubs.
Yeah.
But we have been busy. This is the biggest season yet.
Oh, yeah.
So big we have to split it into 2 halves.
Yeah, because whenever I first suggested this, Lucia was like, that's going to be long. And it's because it is season 4 is called The Magic of Key. Basically, we are going to be talking throughout the entirety of this season about one of Key's bingo card moments, basically, which is key magic. If you look at a key bingo card, key magic is on there somewhere, because it is literally in every keyword, some better than others. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about. Basically, what defines key magic, why each work has it, and kind of like the evolution of it throughout Key, because it has gone through a lot of shifts during its existence.
It is a staple in its, in its whole sense. You cannot have Key without key magic.
Yeah, and
Which is why we will be having episodes even for the works that people say that doesn't have key magic. Oh, it does.
to prove to you that it does, because key magic is a state of mind.
Yes.
It's an idea.
Sounded like such a meme line, but it's kind of true. It's like it's probably the second best meme line you've given on Key Radio Live. The first one being, and maybe the real treasure was the friends we made along the way,
which was during the
Loopers
Loopers.
Book Club.
Yeah,
Loopers Book Club.
The key,
oh my word!
The key magic grind sets.
Yeah.
It's a mindset.
Sigma key magic grind.
Oh my god.
Solve all your problems through just having the magic.
Little Busters is a Denpa. There's your Sigma move for the day.
Oh my word.
We are going so off topic.
We already have. Welcome back to Key Radio Live, everyone. Much more off topic than the book clubs. But no, basically to introduce the format, we're gonna start each episode without spoilers and lean into them towards the end. That way, some people who haven't read this work can maybe get sold on the work based off of its use of key magic. We are not starting with what is technically a key work this episode. Because we are talking about the evolution of it, we felt it was only fitting that we start with the very first work that Jen Maida wrote as a visual novel, which was Moon. But each week we'll be doing different episodes. Next week is canon. We are skipping one for a reason. It'll become evident later in the season.
Yes.
And then we're going to go through Canon Air. Clannad will have 3 episodes because Clannad is just that influential.
It's going to be a beast.
It's a beast because of how it literally defined key magic for the better part of a decade.
Yeah.
So, we have to give 3 episodes to talk about Clannad. And then we're going to do Little Busters, and then it's one right after that, right?
No,
I know.
After Clannad, Robot Trilogy, then Tomio after, then one.
Oh yeah, I forgot. We stopped right before what we would basically call the shift towards modern key.
Right, Little Busters will start the second half of the season after one book club.
Yeah, so we did decide to talk about the Robot Trilogy all as one group, just because to split that into 3 episodes would have balloon this season into something much larger than it already is. The reason we are splitting it up, though, is because of how large this season is. We literally have no way of getting it done before 1 comes out. And we did not want to delay 1 book club and pull a rewrite plus and avoid the hype. So
I need 1 book so bad, but we'll get to more tactics in the future. Right now we have the first one, or the first one that we care about.
The reason why we're doing 1 last is literally so that we can talk about 1 heading into 1 book club. So it's going to be like 1 mania for like
2 months.
The better part of 2 months. It's going to be
Sounds
great.
like my kind of mania.
Yeah.
Honestly. But we're talking about the other tactics work. We did skip Dose because it shares no writers with Modern Key, and the only thing that it really makes it kind of key related is Hinue did art, Shinji Orito did soundtrack. Woohoo! So we're talking about Moon, which is to this day probably one of the weirdest works to talk about. But let's get our introductions down. We all know Lucia and I, but we also have Manpig, who y'all should know at this point as well.
I'm the pig of man, and I really like robots.
And it's very funny because he was added on the episode at the very end, but we should have asked him to feature on this episode anyways, because he's literally done the 1 review. The review.
The moon review. The moon review.
The moon review, because
but it is the 1 review of Moon on YouTube, I think.
Yeah,
because I was the only one who found this thing. Because I got into tactics.
You read it blind.
I read it blind, and after that I wanted to make it was my mission to make sure no one else would read it blind as I did, because boy was that a mistake.
Reading Moon blind is a mistake. Because we will be getting into mild spoilers later on down the road, but
there are some spoilers that you would rather know. Trust me.
Just trigger warnings in advance, essay, and a bunch of just really messed up cult stuff.
Mental health is also
a huge theme in this work.
A huge theme here.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna be as respectful. But the trigger warnings matter here. Please listen to them.
And Patty says, as someone who hates spoilers, I definitely agree. You want some of those spoilers.
100%. Hopefully this episode will make you either make the decision to either read the whole spoiler synopsis of 1 and avoid actually reading it, because I'll admit it's not for everyone, or maybe you want to read 1 and see what it's like. But let's talk about it. Key magic. This is interesting.
This is very interesting. That's definitely one way to put it.
Because there's magic in 1, but it's definitely not.
You're on the wrong work again, Uttori.
Oh my god, 1 is on the brain tonight. I rewatched that OP again, and complete rabbit trail. I rewatched the OP, and it is one of the best visual novel OPs ever.
It's my new favorite. I'm just gonna say
it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, but Moon.
Moon is an interesting work to talk about in relation to key magic, because arguably it shares the least execution wise of the standard key fare that I would say when it comes to the execution of key magic. It's still there. We get some formative moments, but a lot of these more established Mida tropes, the mother-daughter trope, that becomes very strong suited throughout the rest of Key, to the point where it's kind of a joke at this point.
It started here.
It did start here.
In fact, it's the very first thing you see if you read the VN in English and you read the one with the anime cutscenes.
Yes.
It is the very first thing you see when you open the game before you even get to the title menu is Ikumi's mother making her cream stew.
Yep.
And it's really cute because we get to see child Ikumi when she's, wide-eyed and happy before she becomes, very jaded and cynical and almost grumpy, which is fitting given, what she went through. Her like one of the first things you learn is that her mother was killed by Fargo. But it's nice to see where she came from.
It's not. Yeah, these are like things that are shown directly in the opening as well. Like these are things you will know before you even press the start button. Like I will say right now, for the time, the special edition of One's like animated opening is one of the best visual novel openings.
Moon, you're doing it now too.
I'm sorry. Of Moon.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Moon opening is one of the best openings of its era, just because it like has a whole story that you can just tell from the way it's shot and the characters' dialogue, the way they look and they act. It's so good, and the fact that this came in like before the new century, or like basically in the 2000s.
2002 is when we got CD and DVD limited edition, and that was the first one that had the animated openings. Yeah. So 2002.
2002, and it's impressive. Like it's really good.
And like when talking in relation to key magic, it still does establish a couple of tropes. I'll argue that it establishes key magic as a means of which giving the characters a happy ending, because it is something that happens in this work. So for all the suffering, you do get a happy end at the end, like a very uplifting one.
It'll be worth it.
It's worth it. But key magic does play a role in it. We kind of need to quantify what key magic is. Key magic is anything that kind of supernaturally kind of does something in a key work. That's kind of the
great description.
That's kind of the nebulous description. We kind of have to, because the thing is, like, a lot of people go, "Oh, key magic is the thing that kind of like makes things go, all right, all fixed." It's not, because there's other works where key magic actually works in the opposite direction for the characters. Air being one of them. So
we'll talk about that when it's relevant.
I think another interesting thing that's kind of a trope but kind of not is this really did establish Key's very first like ideas of like key magic and projections, because while Doppel Ikumi is not necessarily like an astral projection of any sorts, she plays a similar purpose because she's not a physical being. She's there to literally be the manifestation of Ikumi's anxieties and insecurities.
Her past self. Like what she says is, I was once you, you're going to live through what I lived through so you can repent, basically.
Yeah.
So I think we should probably talk about like the trigger stuff. Moon is very, very mature. This is not a work you want to go in with a light heart, expecting the typical sunshines and rainbows.
There's no all ages version.
There is no all ages version, and there will never be one. Moon will not work without it, and it is.
Seppi did make a patch that removes the HCGs, but you will still see text for those scenes.
That's probably a good thing, I would say.
Yeah. Like, because otherwise you would actually be removing the story. But I did like go through a little bit of this version, and if you are still triggered by reading the text, it does not help, I will say.
Yeah,
that's fair.
It is just the text. But yeah, Moon is very mature, and a lot of the stuff that Ikumi has pent up in the past is related to
a lot of shameful things.
We'll call it kith. A lot of kith things. Kith.
I don't even know what that word is.
It's a funny way of saying kiss, but not kiss. Beyond kiss.
A
lot of just really not cool stuff that is not monetizable on YouTube and would also get us age restricted. So
fun.
Yeah.
Not that we monetize, but age restricted is another thing. But basically, it has a lot to do with that. It actually got this game banned in a lot of countries.
Understandable.
I would not be surprised if it gets banned here if a remake does happen.
Yeah, I personally skipped through a lot of it. Like, But needless to say, it's tough. But Doppel Ikumi is like the first time, and very early on, that we get this like idea of like a non-physical being affecting like a physical character. We see this a lot later in works like Canon, Air, and Clanad, but like this is the first one to like really go. I mean, it is the first, but like it really did establish the trope early of like, hey, we're gonna do non-physical characters in a physical world. Here we go, have fun with that.
And Doppel Ikumi is like a really, really important character. Like she's
to the point where she has, unlike the rest of the characters in this game, actually has a theme, like a dedicated theme.
It's terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying.
And the thing is, that theme persists through the H scenes. So like the thing is, and I think this is complete genius, and I do equate this to Maida because I believe, I'll fact check this, I believe he wrote Doppel Ikumi's theme.
He did.
Uttori, do you know that? He did.
Oh wait, no, wait. Composed by Shinji Orito.
Oh, okay. But
Maida definitely almost certainly had a hand in it. Like, let's be
right, and especially in the sound directions moment with it, because this theme persists through the H scene. So if you bought this game hoping for porn, like even if the CGs are exciting on the screen, the game doesn't want you to be excited about this. It wants you to be like, what the hell, like.
And it definitely does a good job at making you feel that way.
Yeah,
100%.
like, I did not enjoy reading this. I feel like I learned a lot about Ikumi. I did not enjoy reading the L-Pod scenes. Like,
You're not supposed to. That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. It's that Maida genius that was there from the very beginning.
Yep. Another theme that, like, not necessarily Key Magic, but a theme that'll reoccur that Key Magic like attempts to solve is mental health. This game has a lot to do with depression, anxiety, and insecurities.
We see it in all three of the leads.
Yeah, we see it in all three of the leads, and it is worth pointing out that this theme is almost at its most direct in this game. Like, Maida really pulled no punches. I think whenever he got to Key, like they had to go, like they did have to hold him back, like genuinely, because Maida did not pull any punches with this game, and like in later games, it does feel a lot tamer, or at least maybe I would call Moon like a very raw execution of like all of the tropes that it does. Like it's very honest about itself, while later works are more nuanced about its takes. Moon is just like, hey, this character is depressed because of this thing that happened. You feeling great?
Yeah.
This work is also, I'd argue, a work that I don't think it's worse on a second read, but it's one that like the shock value of the first read does carry it a lot. Then you notice a lot more on a second read.
Yeah,
it's funny. I did try to read it again, and I think my tolerance for hardcore has just gone significantly down as I've gotten older, and I couldn't do it again. I first read it in like 2020, and I wanted to reread it before this episode because it's been like almost 3 years since I've read it. It's not very fresh for me, but I couldn't. I tried.
Yeah, it is.
It's a tough read.
Yeah.
And when I read it for the first time, I could barely get through it myself. Like I had to hold some things in, and it was not the fun stuff. If you catch my drift.
Oh my god.
It was not a fun read. I felt genuinely sick, and yeah. No, this is definitely not a visual novel for the faint of heart. You need to be aware of that if you want to touch Moon, because if you go into it blind like I did, you're gonna be in for one nasty surprise.
Yeah.
Going in blind is awful. It's like, I cannot stress enough, like, if, like, it's not worth reading if you can't get through it. Like, just, like, if you're uncomfortable, just stop.
Yeah, like, and it's like intentional, but it's also like the way they grasp you with the rawness of the self-reflection and the way they have these characters just straight up confront all of their deepest, darkest secrets, and you just have to watch them go through it, is like that hits really close to home, but it's also like really not for the faint of heart.
Well,
no kidding.
Sort of. Let's. We spent some time talking about the L-Pod, which is basically doppel Ikumi, slut-shaming Ikumi. Let's call it what it is.
Yep.
But we didn't talk much about the Minmus, and the Minmus is where you look back at not necessarily at shameful moments of your past, but reminisce on happy moments of your past that have gone. So Ikumi sees a lot of her childhood with her parents.
I would not say happiness. I would say emotional. Like it is
Fair,
basically like it's more closer to what you would expect from like a typical key story in terms of like the emotional beats. But there are moments that are pretty they're not like depressing, but they're not.
I mean, she was cast as a tree in the school play. She was
cast as a tree in the school play.
That's pretty depressing.
I find it funny.
It's funny, but
that was a hilarious scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm mainly talking about stuff like I'm not sure if I can say this, but the circumstances that led Ikumi's mom to join the cult that
Fargo.
Ikumi eventually Fargo, that eventually Ikumi would join herself to find out why she did such a thing. It's basically like a flashback, and most of Ikumi's like more tender memories you will notice.
Yeah.
They relate to her parents, and specifically her mother, who she has a very close connection with.
Yes.
And they make this very apparent from the beginning. Like the entire reason she is going to this cult, going to Fargo, is because she lost her mom, and she wants to know why she had to lose her mom. Like she's just going straight to the source and confronting what exactly went, what happened here. That's why she's here.
Yeah. I'd also like to point out that like these two sides of like the daily routine are sort of like the building blocks for the two sides of key that exist nowadays, that like just naturally exist in works, because the L-Pod scenes are very much the interpersonal conflict within characters. Basically like the stuff the main character's going through, which we see a lot in key nowadays, like just a reoccurring theme of interpersonal change and challenge. While the meanness scenes are very much representative of the family drama, like the family's overarching theme of family that exists in all key works, family, friendship, etc. And I think that that's fascinating, that like this early on you can still see like the two sides of like what makes key emotional. Because
I have a question about these for you, Uttori.
Yes.
I will point out that if you read Moon in Japanese, the words Minmus and L-Pod are both still presented in English, like with English characters.
Yeah.
Do you know the meaning behind Maida picking these words? Because they seem like random words to me. But I don't know if there's an actual meaning behind it. I'm curious.
So Minmus, it's spelled like
Minmes.
That would explain why I'm not pulling up anything. We're going to go on a little bit of a research. I mean, I could say that I know that Minmus is a like spelled with a U is a moon. It's the small. It is the smallest moon of Kerbin, which is a planet in like another solar system. I don't think Maida had that in mind. Space names typically are not a thing, but it could also be a reference to the Latin word minimus, which is a creature that is of the smallest or least significance. So it could be their way of saying like
this might be how Ikumi felt.
Not just that, but like how Fargo prioritizes like the indoctrination process that they have. Like they don't really care about, like they're trying to designificant. They're trying to make your family less significant and your interpersonal feelings more significant. Now, L-Pod, your guess is as good as mine.
This is a very surface level observation, but if you spell L-Pod backwards, it's like a really like scuffed way of spelling Doppel.
Not just that, like the only thing L-Pod like that like I know of is that it's the name of a group of killer whales, like literally nothing related.
Weird. Okay.
So I do think L-Pod might just be like Mida going Doppel.
What if these are just really like cool sounding names that the writers just thought sounded cool, and
well,
I'll
point something else out, because like this is a bit of Moon knowledge that I do have. In the not the DVD limited edition of Moon, the DVD PG edition of Moon, the one that you just put inside of a DVD player, which is by far the rarest version of this game that I do have. Oh boy, it's a long story. It took me 4 tries. I won't tell that story. But
tell it at the end. I think it'd be funny.
Okay, remind me if I forget. In this version of Moon, since DVD players do not have internal memory, there is a password save system. So because of that, like the passwords are all like English characters, and then it has like horrible English on the splash screens that say like password accepted, you now return to World of Moon, or it's even worse than that. I'm gonna look this up.
All your base are belong to us.
Oh my word.
Something like that. But it's oi.
I do enjoy a good English, not gonna lie.
Yeah, this is like one of the worst I've ever seen. No, okay. Here they are. I found them. If you put in the password correctly, the English is password recognition. It returned to the World of Moon.
Yeah, this could just be Mida being silly goofy.
Yeah, if you do it wrong, it's password error. It cannot reach this world. Though regrettable, please return to real world.
Bruh.
I love English.
It's might be the worst I've ever seen, but
that's honestly some of the best English I've ever seen. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh wait, I even said it wrong. It's not please, it's literally prees with an R. P-R-E-A-S-E.
Man. Amazing.
That's God tier. That's art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're gonna read Moon in Japanese, don't read this version. It sucks dick.
Perhaps the true Moon was the English we read along the way.
Oh yes. Awesome.
Amazing.
The true key magic is the English that we experience.
Mm-hmm.
But no, like that I have no guesses about that. I have a lot to say about the flower scene that I can't
talk about in the spoiler half.
The spoiler half, but also like I hate to say it, but I don't necessarily think it's necessarily related to key magic, but we'll talk about it anyways because it is one of the best moments in Moon.
In Moon, yeah.
Yeah, but it's very good. It's one of my favorite scenes in the visual novel, but it is definitely one of those things where like you have to talk about it. And I mean, I can talk with spoilers because there's it's sort of the pivotal moment of Moon.
Well, yeah, you have to go down, I think, 20 flights of stairs to get there, and you actually have to click your way through it.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Another thing that I really enjoyed about the way Moon uses key magic is this sort of set a precedent for Key to eventually be able to do superpowers with Key magic, because one of the cool things about Moon is the whole idea is that you got this invisible force that allows you to sort of break things. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, we have to talk about the invisible strength, and this I would say is not super spoilery because we do see Yuri get it in like the first 4 days.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it particularly spoilery.
Right. Like, the invisible strength is the goal of the girls in Fargo.
Yeah.
Or not just the girls in Fargo, it's like the organization. Like,
Yeah,
in
the
general.
reason they're doing the thing they're doing.
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
It's like, basically, for lack of better term,
They're making weapons.
helping people manifest in like inert psychic powers through sexual torture.
Funny.
Fun. I love Key.
We really did pick up a whopper to start.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's for sure.
That's certainly one way to put it, but yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I really like that like is vaguely related to Key magic is the relationship between Ikumi and her mother, because while not directly magical in this work, it did pave the way for basically there to be like this super strong magical connection later with other Key like parents.
The theming.
Yeah, it's all about like that consistent theming that like we all want to that like we all need to talk about, because
We'll talk about it when we get to Nayuki, and we'll really talk about it with Misuzu.
and then we'll really talk about it with Nagisa.
Yeah.
Key mothers are just a trope that'll never go away, ever.
Mhm.
God bless them for that.
Not that that's a problem, by the way. It's just
Yeah.
you know, it's like one of those things where it's like, this is the reality. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to say about Moon and Key magic other than like it did start it. It used it.
I don't have a lot to say until we get to the spoilers. Is the thing? It's
Same.
Because a lot of that.
So let's get there. I think we've covered everything
Yeah.
else now. Read Moon if you can handle the content. Like, this is like, unlike pretty much every other work we'll talk about on this one, on this season, this
is
again
skippable.
is not for everybody. It is skippable.
Yeah. The main appeal of Moon is that this is very much a story about self-improvement and self-reflection. It is worth the struggle if you can stomach that content, but if you do not feel comfortable with it, don't force yourself.
There is literally other works that can do what Moon do. So like,
And have.
yeah, like genuinely. So like, Moon is not a unique work in this sense that like, if you do it, if you do miss it, you're gonna be missing out on like some like pivotal, like unique Key story. Moon is just very formative. It's unique in other ways, but not particularly in how it utilizes Key's
Magic.
Key's tropes.
Yeah.
Simply because it was the first. Key had more time to refine said tropes. That's just the nature of it. Like it was one of Maida's first like things he ever wrote.
It paved the way, but it just did it in a very different way, in a very different genre as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's get into spoilers. Please do hop out of the live chat if you haven't read Moon and intend on reading Moon.
Yep.
Just because just of the fact that we really don't want to make people upset. Bye Found. I am so sorry.
It's understandable. All right. So are we going to assume everyone else here is willing to indulge in the spoilers?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna let people know. We'll let them know in the post show.
Yeah. Also, Platy has read it, so
All right. Gotcha.
yeah.
And I don't think Ham cares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk about it.
Okay, so the big thing with the moon discussion that I want to talk about is basically like the entire latter half, because that's where all the weird stuff starts happening.
Yes.
Well, we have 3 things we really need to talk about here. The actual manifestation of the invisible strength within Ikumi. We can kind of talk about the flower scene and also the mysterious voice that's running the whole operation.
Yes.
That thing is terrifying.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that thing is terrifying.
Key really did say the villain will be the moon. Ha ha ha. Let's be funny.
I don't know what to make of that.
There's a lot of things I do want to discuss, because like this is what the part of the podcast where I feel like I can go on and on, because the magic is literally just like how weird and bizarre things, because like Moon is the deepest Key goes into what I like to call abstract storytelling. You don't know what's going on, and the line between reality and imagination is just blurred so much that you can't tell what is what.
It's almost a fever dream during that last sequence.
Exactly. Like the entire last few days, I would feel, is like there's no way I can describe this setting other than magical, because it's so out there that it literally makes no sense if you put it in a worldly perspective.
Yeah.
It is the furthest he has ever leaned into just raw supernatural, where like all of it is just kind of out there. Especially whenever you have the voice behind this all, the moon. God, I sound crazy talking about it.
But it's
Key,
where we are.
Key did a moon route before moon route was a thing. Ha 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 ha. But no, yeah, the voice is just kind of the moon. Ikumi takes it out. It's kind of weird. I genuinely have no clue what to make of it thematically. I'm like, why? I like, if I ever get
my own thoughts, but I want to get into that later after we talk about the stuff prior, because I think it's really important.
We need to talk about one of the moments that, while not Key magic, is the most Key-like moment in the visual novel, which is the flower scene. Ikumi is basically at the end of...
Do you want to do that one first, or do you want to talk about Ikumi's manifestation of the invisible strength first? Because that's the one that happens first, and it's the one I actually want to talk the most about.
You talk about it first, because I could talk ad nauseum about the flower scene, and we might as well talk about this.
And I can talk about the moon. Holy crap.
We each have one. So I'll go first, because mine happens first. But when Ikumi starts to get the physical strength, one of my favorite moments in the game, and one that actually hit me really hit me the way it was supposed to, is that the game will just kind of cut out in I swear it's like something straight out of Totino. It'll just cut out in the middle of a Minmus scene, and then Ikumi will wake up in this random little block in the upper right corner on the map. And you're
I was about to say I knew exactly what you were talking about.
And it's like, what the heck? Because like Moon's map system is a grid, and it just seems like it's an empty box. You can travel into it starting on day 2 when you get access to the map, but there's nothing to do in there. But Ikumi will just wake up in there, and then you just keep going about your day. Then the following day, you realize there's scratches on the walls. Before it's finally revealed that she's trying to get to the moon. But she has this... The invisible strength is not just what you said in the beginning, the ability to move objects. It's also kind of like a sixth sense on where she needs to go to get out, out of Fargo, because the way out of Fargo is to take out the boss, and she's trying to get into that room that she was in on the first day when she got placed into Class A. But the way it's presented is very much in line with what happens in later works with key magic because we see like a little glimpse of it, then a little more, then a little more, and then you get that oh shit, that's what she's doing moment with something that we've seen there the entire time. That little spot in the upper right corner of the map has been there the whole time. You just can't do anything with it until you know why it's there. And I thought that was really cool.
It is the biggest definition of like what we'll see a lot with key magic, which was it was right in front of your face the whole time.
Yes, exactly that. And I loved that. I thought it was really well done.
It's so good.
Like for all of the issues with actually like usability of the map system, the idea of it and the presentation of it, I think, is really fantastic.
I will agree with that.
I wish they didn't get rid of arrow key and number pad movements that were in the original and renewal versions, but got cut from the DVD limited edition for Lord knows why.
Nasidoro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no clue. Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely the moment that sort of turns like what you know about the VN on its head, because on a second read you realize, oh, that was foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Fun.
I love foreshadowing.
Oh, I love it too. It's just like one of those things where the moment you get it, you're like, ooh.
Let's go to the flower fields. Yeah.
The flower fields. So basically, to set the scene, Ikumi is basically at the end of her rope. She, this is right after she, the boy.
This is where boy gets captured.
Yeah, this is where boy gets captured. She's at the end of her rope. She's the most down on herself she's ever been. She climbs 20 flights of stairs and finds this mysterious room. And it's just filled with flowers. Classic Maida move right there. And she just starts picking at him and sobbing. It's a gut punch scene. There's a lot that goes on in it.
Best CG in the game, by the way.
Best CG. But this does begin a trope of Maida and abstract storytelling through symbolism, because the flowers that she holds, I need to go back to my... All right, so in this field of flowers, basically I had gone through and tried to identify some of the flowers in Moon to try and deduce the flower scene. And I thought the two flowers that she picks up, they're supposed to be like very deliberate. Because Ikumi's at her lowest, she's about to give up. Like, this is like a really bad moment for her. And the two flowers that she picks up are basically what I can identify as a plumeria, or and a dandelion, like the actual dandelion flower, not the blow one. But like whenever it actually sprouts into a flower, and both have two very specific meanings. A plumeria has the meaning of a new beginning, and the dandelion is often representative of hope and love in many cultures. So in a sense, like in this scene, she's at her lowest of lows, she's about to give up, but then at the very end she manages to pick up two things, which is the strength to start anew and to take those that she loves and cares about with her. And that's beautiful. And this is a moment that sort of defines key magic for me, is sometimes it's not even about the magic, but like the not the literal key magic, but the figurative magic of key, like wow, that's just like a really moving sentiment. Like you have this scene that is just so powerful, where you have this character who's depressed, traumatized, at the end of her rope, has every like real reason to want to just finish it, and finds the ability to still look and grip on to a future that she doesn't even know if she can get. And
it's the most color we see in the game too, because like even when she looks into her past during the Minmus scenes, those are all shown in sepia, but when we get to the flowers, we actually see a lot of color.
It's an odd sense of beauty, especially like because the CG is still like covered in darkness as well. It's like you're not out of it. It's like sort of like a oasis, but it's really melancholic and kind of bittersweet.
Yeah, and I love it. It's one of my favorite. It is my favorite moment in Moon, but it's also like such a good example of like how Key manages to pull off like such a beautiful narrative and like what Key magic can be, because it's more than just, you know, astral projections and like the Deus Ex Machinas. It's about what those actually mean for the story, because Two Flowers ultimately didn't have like the power to turn Ikumi around, but like what they represent is so beautiful that like it defines
the path.
It started the path for like even greater Key magic moments. One of the greatest coming not even like 10 years later with Air and Clanad.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Moon.
Okay, this is the part where I have a lot to say, and I'm gonna just be straight up. A lot of this is gonna be reaching, because
you don't say,
because this scene makes zero sense. Like, you look at this in terms of like a hypothetical mindset, you're not gonna understand it whatsoever because it just straight up does not make any sense. There's no narrative. It is a
fever dream.
It's so weird. But here is my take and my interpretation of what I see the Moon as. Now, the entire story of Moon is essentially like Ikumi facing back on her shameful memories. Fargo is literally the thing that's making Ikumi essentially go through all of these things again and having to face herself. And obviously Fargo is run by a leader. We don't know who this leader is, but we take this leader as sort of like the embodiment of Fargo. He's like an image. And we hear his voice at the beginning of the game, but I don't even remember if we do outside of the beginning and the ending. Is there any other moments? I don't think there is.
Constantly. He is the voice that gets Ikumi in and out of both the Minmus and Elpod.
Is he the same voice? I thought that was a different guy.
Nope, same voice.
Same voice. Okay, never mind. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we don't hear like important things from them. It's just like, welcome A12. This is day 3 of your training. Your training is complete, you know?
Yeah.
Like the only time we like hear a lot from them is at the very beginning and the very end.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so this actually buys better into my what I'm thinking the Moon is that the Moon is essentially sort of a literal embodiment of Fargo as an organization and the influence they have had on Ikumi. Because as we know, Moon has a lot of bad ends. There are a lot of ways this story can go south, and
very fast.
There are plenty of ways where Ikumi will fall into some bad end, some bad result, and the cause of this is all Fargo, because Fargo is making Ikumi face herself, her darkest secrets, and they are essentially torturing this poor girl. And she is, in every sense, a victim. Ikumi is a victim to their situation. What she's gone through is all because of them. And even her own self-loathing, sort of, Fargo is... The reason Fargo is able to affect her is because she has had so much self-loathing and so many dark things that she hides in her heart. So I feel like the Moon is sort of like the embodiment of all of those things, all of those dark secrets, all of the sheer effect Fargo has on Ikumi as a person, and all of those dark things that she hides is all embodied by the Moon. Because here's the thing about the Moon: it is always in the sky, It is always surrounded by the dark of night, and it is always watching you. It is always, without fail, up there watching you, and you cannot escape it.
It's just Roz from Monsters Inc.
Exactly. But like,
always watching you, Ikumi.
always
watching.
Oh my god.
Always watching. But that's the point. Is like, and in the CG where Ikumi faces the moon, she is looking out at a gigantic thing that feels like it's gonna engulf her and just crush her. That is Fargo. That is the moon. That is the literal title of this visual novel, is that this is a horrifying, gigantic, oppressive force that is Ikumi's trauma. And
here's the thing, finish and then I'll piggyback off that. You're talking about the title of this visual novel and how, like, it's oppressive. There's a very important piece here that's particularly important to some Japanese readers I've talked to. Moon is always presented with a period after it.
Moon in all caps and with a period.
There's a sense of finality to that, like, where just it's kind of like saying you don't have a choice, and a lot of them make like a weirdly big deal about the period being there. And I have a feeling like the meaning behind it is something that was kind of lost in translation. Moon's translation is not bad, but it was also the very first translation by Amaterasu, so they were, still gathering their bearings before eventually they translated Rewrite.
Yeah. And that's understandable. I feel like the big thing about the moon is that it is literally the embodiment of all of Ikumi's traumas, all of her like horrible memories. And when she faces the moon, it makes no sense, and she's lost, and she could very easily stay lost because she's essentially fighting what I feel is not just her rough memories, but the entire will of Fargo, all of the people that Fargo has preyed on all at once. She's just dealing with all of those memories because that is what Fargo has. That's the reach this cult has on vulnerable people, because that's what cults do. They prey on vulnerable people with horrifying pasts of all of their kinds, and Yukimi is just one of them.
You see it like in the very first scene. There's a line from Haruka in the animated opening where she says, "Look at the eyes of these people, they've all given up."
Yeah. And I feel that the final scene where Ikumi is going against the moon and she's seeing the fever dream, the good ending is her breaking out of that and making the story making sense. Like, she's put back into her own perspective and you get what's going on again. I feel like that is quite literally Ikumi overcoming herself, and the definitive moment she does that. She finally is able to overcome her trauma, overcome this horrible organization that has genuinely like owned her life, like held her in a grasp for so many years because of all the things that she's experienced because of them. And she's finally able to just overcome all of that and stand up in spite of that, because that is the power of people. And I feel like the whole key magic is showing that the moon is sort of like, again, like an astral projection. It's not literally there, it's more of like a symbol. This is like a bizarre...
What you're telling me is I can't make a meme this episode and say the moon is real.
I mean, you can if you want. I like to say instead that the moon is inside of all of our hearts. The real moon is inside of our hearts. It is the things that watches over us in our night, and it's what makes us think bad thoughts. But yeah, that's what I feel like the moon is that it represents... It is the literal manifestation, and like a visual manifestation and a story manifestation of Ikumi's trauma, all from Fargo as an organization, the grasp Fargo has on her. And I feel like that moment where she is able to break free from the moon and regain her sanity is very reminiscent of a lot of those big moments in a lot of key stories that I feel like obviously the context and the way they're presented are very different, but it's the same idea of breaking free and doing the thing that feels impossible. Something that we see in a lot of key works. It's doing the impossible, making a miracle. That's key. That's my thought.
Key in a nutshell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, we season finished, guys.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's
so
my interpretation of the moon.
I really like it, and we did spend a lot of time talking about this episode, how like some of the things set up here, even though Moon is a very different work, does affect later key works, and I bet we will be referencing this episode a lot. So even though we started with a very weird one that's kind of niche and not a lot of people have read, I think it's a good tone setter for what we want season 4, The Magic of Key, to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'd call that an episode. That's
call that an episode.
Yeah, I agree. Good episode.
All right, good episode. We'll see you all next week with Canon, which is the first key work. Key squared.
Yep, Canon will be next week, and then we'll go from there. Thanks for being here.
Of course. Have a fantastic night, everyone. And
Sleep well.
Don't
Don't let the bed bugs bite.
Ew.
Gross. All right. Bye.